coming up on The Whitney Reynolds Show.
Do unto to others as you would do unto yourselves.
That's right. Well,
especially this day and age with what goes on.
There's always still a hope to keep on going forward.
Today we have a surprise. Josue Cervantes, you get a $5,000 scholarship to go to our conference.
The Whitney Reynolds Show is made possible by Together at Peace, a foundation supporting hopeful bereavement care for the world by inspiring people to find ways to live with, honor, and share the unique love they carry, spreading the light that still shines bright. Together at Peace. Children's Learning Place, dedicated to empowering young students with the confidence to overcome present and future challenges to promote a brighter future for all. Kevin O'Connor Law Firm. When it comes to your injuries, we take it personally. JoePerillo.com, where you can browse their selection of pre-owned luxury vehicles. Based in Chicago, shipping all over the country. Simple Modern, drinkware with unique styles for adults and kids. Take us with you. The Adventures of Harry Moon book series for kids, focusing on becoming your best self with themes of friendship, anti-bullying, and responsibility. At harrymoon.org. Kevin Kelly, Fume Claire, Midwest Moving and Storage, Mike Dyer, Brendan Stadunsky, and by these funders.
Hello and welcome to the Whitney Reynolds Show. We are so glad that you are joining us in this new season. There is so much negativity out there, and today we want to remind you there's still something to celebrate. We sat down and chatted with a young man who's been called a miracle. He has been beating all the odds, and we are going to celebrate that.
The accident, it was just crazy to me. Like 1 minute, I was living like a normal life, like running around, playing sports. And the next moment, my life was just very different.
He just had a ton of medical stuff, a ton of physical stuff. He was contracted all over. His arms were stiff. He was trached. His legs were completely contracted. And so he was just in absolute horrible shape when he got to us. And it scared a lot of the nursing staff because he was just so fragile.
So I pull in this parking lot. It had just started raining. And Caleb's a young driver, 16, but he had driven in the rain many times. He went 10 minutes one way, I went 10 minutes the other. I literally walk into my house, my phone rings, it says Caleb Freeman, and I answer, and there's a man on the other line. He said, "Sir, do you have two sons?" I mean, it kind of took me back, like, who is this? I said, "Hey," I said, "Who is this? Why do you have my son's phone?" He said, "Do you have two sons?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, they've been in an accident. How quickly can you get here?" So my wife and I jump in the car, we're driving down the road, it's raining harder, and we had lost a son 4 years before that to cancer, so just the thought of losing another one at that point was unbearable to us. Well, the EMS worker met us and said, Clayton was in one ambulance, our 14-year-old. He had a concussion, but he was in shock. He didn't remember anything. Caleb was in another ambulance, and they wouldn't let us go over there. And the EMS worker said, you got to get to the ER as quickly as you can. About 30 minutes in, they let us go in to see him, and it was about as heartbreaking as you could imagine. I mean, he was out and blood everywhere. And so this nurse, I pulled her to the side and I said, "Ma'am, I need an update here. No one's telling me anything." And she said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but," she said, "your son needs a miracle." And that's when reality really set in for me. Like in that moment, I was like, this is life or death.
Caleb Freeman, a former high school athlete from Oklahoma, was involved in a life-altering car accident. Now, this is a call no parent wants to receive and a scene that was shocking to see.
When you heard he needs a miracle, did you take that chance? Because they gave you like a chance. Like sometimes it's
less
like
than 10%.
Less than 10%.
Yep.
Did you take that 10% and double down on it, or did you just say, let's see how tonight goes?
Well, I'll tell you this, and this is where the story gets pretty interesting, but a lady came running into the ER. She's wearing a white outfit and she had blood all over her. And she said, "Are you Caleb's parents?" And we said, "Yes." And she said, "I want you to know I saw the accident." She goes, "I'm a certified CPR trained instructor." She goes, "I ran across the highway and nobody was tending to Caleb." She was like the third person on the accident scene. Come to find out, nobody was tending to Caleb because they thought he was dead. They didn't want to touch him. So she climbed over the console because the semi truck, 75,000 pounds, was still pinned up against Caleb's side of the car. So she climbed in the passenger side and climbed over the middle. She said she stopped the bleeding. She cleared his airway to make sure he's breathing. But she's a Christian, and she said, "I want you to know I prayed for your son." And she said, "God has told me your son's going to live." Now that's a big thing to tell somebody in a moment of uncertainty. She didn't know anything about it. She didn't know I was a pastor. She didn't know any of that stuff. But for her to tell me that, it was a bold statement. But there was something about that moment where I felt like, okay, this is going to be different. The outcome's going to be different.
I've worked with hundreds of patients, and we see a lot of great outcomes, but nothing to his maximum like miracle potential. But it's truly a miracle. When I first met him, I didn't think he would recover the way he did.
He has a diffuse axonal brain injury, grade 3. There's only 3 grades. Grade 3 is the worst. He was a 3 on the Glasgow coma scale. When he arrived, 3 is the lowest. You're brain dead. I will never forget that surgeon looked at me and said, "We don't expect your son to live through the night. We're going to do everything we can to support him, but you need to prepare for that."
What was it like for you to see him start beating these statistics that you were saying?
Well, living through the night was the first big step. And then Caleb, he likes to say he was taking an 8-week nap. Isn't that right, Caleb?
Yeah, when I like to put it in like good terms, I just say I was well rested. I just take a nice, and I was in coma heaven.
Coma heaven, yeah. And so we moved our family to Denver, Colorado. There's a specialty hospital there. Caleb still, 8 weeks, he had no response. No, "Hey, Caleb, blink your eyes, squeeze our hand." None of that stuff.
Nothing. For how long again?
8 weeks, 2 months.
Had you given up at all during that time of maybe this is it?
Well, I will tell you, there were moments because it was like you're clinging to faith, you're hoping, all those things. You think maybe this is what it's going to be like for the rest of our life, right? And then one day he's sitting in his wheelchair, just kind of staring off, and he had opened his eyes, but there was no, like the lights were on, but nobody was home, kind of a thing. And then one day his therapist said, "Caleb, can you nod your head yes?" And what'd you do? Like a boss. He nodded his head. He woke up, and the doctors could not believe it.
It was truly like God just said, "Now's the time." And when I shook my head, I started progressing little by little.
Did you have a plan in place for when he did wake up, how we would tell him?
Honestly, if my wife were sitting right here, she would say we adopted this motto of one day at a time, one day at a time. Because if you thought too far beyond that, it was just crippling, to think about. So we would get up in the morning, we'd say, let's just do the next right thing. What's the next right thing? And so as Caleb started waking up, he couldn't speak at first. Like he had to relearn how to talk. He had to so he would use a spelling board to spell. He had to relearn how to swallow, how to breathe on his own, all those things. It was a long process. I mean, we ended up moving to another rehab facility, which is kind of an independent living facility in Omaha, Nebraska. So we had other steps in the way, but we didn't know any of that. It was like we just kept walking through the next door that was open for us.
What was it like for you to learn about what you had been through in those 8 weeks?
I was learning like God was truly doing something bigger with my life than I could ever do for myself. Like I thought about like I had a specific dream for my own life. Like I wanted to become a professional athlete someday. Whenever I was in high school, I didn't understand a lot. I was like, why am I the one who's not able to play sports? And all these other people, they're able to play sports. So like, it didn't look very fair to me.
We're seeing 2023 Caleb that is, speaking, and we know you made it, but I forgot, like in the midst of your hard time, you were in high school, and that's hard enough itself.
On this earth, there's always going to be someone that has a lot better than you and someone that has a lot worse.
Brain injury, he'll live with this the rest of his life, right? So you don't just get over it, you just endure. And Caleb, in many ways, was built for this. And so every day, I didn't have to push him too hard. Caleb always pushes himself. If I said, Caleb, I want you to do this, he'll say, I'm going to do it twice. He always goes the extra mile. Hey, Caleb, let's go walk the football field. Let's do it up and back. No, let's do it up and back twice. And so Caleb would go out to that football field, and he had a walker at first. He'd go up and down for hours. And then he got to the walker to the side. I'd hold his arm up and down for hours. Then he started doing it on his own, up and down for hours. We bought him knee pads because he would fall down so much, and he would get back up and keep going. He got to the point where he was kind of trotting. And so I like to say that's a picture of like who he is. Caleb is a motivated, determined, committed young man. And man, I'm telling you what, that's been an amazing thing to watch.
The wreck is a defining moment. Life was never going to be the same.
Right.
But as you said, things blossomed actually out of that wreck, and you became more talkative. And not only have you become a singer, you're a dancer, you are putting yourself out there in ways that pre-wreck you weren't doing.
And then the other goal I have, maybe to be able to play sports again on the side, maybe. And the biggest goal right now is to travel around the country and get to speak just wherever we can.
So we know what it's like to lose, a child. We know what it's like to have a child kind of recover progressively. So we make a lot of hospital visits. We talk to a lot of people, minister to a lot of people, because they are looking for hope. And we want them to know that you can overcome, even in the most unimaginable situation, even in loss. You can make it, you can overcome.
There's always still a hope to keep on going forward. Like, giving up is only when you quit and refuse to get back up.
Yeah.
If you will continue to get back up, like, through your mistakes, honestly, you're made stronger because then you learn what not to do. So if you always keep getting back up and going after life the hardest, like, those are the biggest difference in the world we'll see.
Caleb's story is one that proves, even in tragedy, it is possible to create waves that ultimately change the world.
Okay, team, I'm a big fan of first. First steps, first love, and guess what? We're taking you to my first red carpet. Come on, let's go.
It was a night of lights, camera, and celebration. The star-studded cast of About My Father hosted their red carpet premiere in our show's hometown of Chicago, and we joined the excitement for it all.
People don't sort of go do normal premieres anymore. It's
I
like the
know.
business of movies has
I want
changed.
this.
So I'm really, as corny as that sounds, I'm like really grateful and excited to be at a premiere.
It's been lovely. I've had a busy day.
What is? Well, I'm stoked to be here.
Right?
Yeah.
Is this like surreal for you?
Kind of. Yeah, I think so, a little bit.
Man, this is just like every filmmaker's dream to work with this group of actors.
Tonight means celebrating a lot of hard work that we all put in over a year ago, seeing a story that's very close to Sebastian come to fruition.
The feeling I get on stage watching people laugh is 10 times better than the people actually doing it. So, yeah, I mean, am I happy? Absolutely.
It was really lovely to be part of it and work with Robert De Niro. I mean, please.
I'm here. They decided to have the premiere here, which makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Salvo, Sebastian are from here, and it's great.
Lead actor and writer Sebastian Maniscalco added humor to his life story when creating this film. The script brought to life the first-generation journey and all the beautiful chaos that families can share.
Yeah, for me, humor has been kind of the glue that's been keeping my family together. We're constantly laughing. There's always somebody that did something funny or we're commenting on. And I talk about my father a lot in my family in my stand-up act, but this, I felt these stories needed kind of a bigger platform in the sense that they were kind of relationship-based, and I felt like a movie would be a good vehicle to express some of the stories I had about my father.
When I read the script, I was like, I have to direct this because it's all about Sebastian's relationship with his dad and that first generation thing. And that's something that I'm deeply familiar with.
These people have jobs. They got their money in the stock market, not in mayonnaise jars buried in their backyard.
Everything I'm doing for you, that I've ever done for you, is for your own good.
And besides laughs, there were different takeaways for all.
you connect on a human level where even if I'm not the son of immigrants,
right?
You connect on a familial level.
We had another guy said that he called, when the movie was over, he called his dad like immediately.
I hope with every project that I'm involved with, there's something that an audience can take away, you know. Not to be too heavy or important about it, I want to entertain people. I love doing comedy because it makes people happy.
Yes.
And that means a lot to me.
Do unto others as you would do unto yourselves.
That's right. Well,
especially this day and age with what goes on.
Hey guys, so can I have everybody's attention? We're gonna make a quick announcement because I know you guys are hungry and want to get on to lunch. We had a board member, Raymond Geraldson Jr., and he started a scholarship fund. And so today we have a surprise. Josue Cervantes, you get a $5,000 scholarship to go to our telephone. Here you go. We're so welcome. We're so proud of you. Thank you. Oh, wow.
A lot of my baked goods are some flavors that come from my culture and my cultural background. So I am a Mexican American, so a lot of my flavors are Mexican vanilla, café de olla, which is like a Mexican coffee, which I infuse with chocolate to make my chocolate cupcakes or chocolate batter cakes. I also infuse a lot of cinnamon, cardamom, star anise, and other different types of flavors that come from my culture. So I do have my own small business dedicated to baking and pastry.
It's been a big month for Josue, from graduating high school to being a new business owner, to winning a culinary scholarship that will change his life.
I've always been ambitious. That's one of the things that I wanted to do, to go to college. And I knew that it was going to be a struggle, knowing that nobody in my family has ever gone to college before. So just being able to be the first and seeing that it is possible has really just like sparked me and has given me more motivation. This really helped me a lot, especially by starting off my small business. Of course, with all of the free equipment that we would receive throughout our first times that we did the camp, I used it as a way to invest in myself and invest in my business. So with all of those free equipment, I started off my small business, and from there it started to grow.
We're Foundation for Culinary Arts, and so we work to inspire and empower young individuals that want to pursue a career in the culinary arts. All of our kids come from disadvantaged, disinvested neighborhoods. What we really decided is we really wanted to focus on kids that don't have access. They live in food deserts. Then they do homework so that they taste different things, so they taste all different types of culinary herbs. I mean, everything from, apple mint to lemon thyme and just, regular old basil or purple basil. They got to buy something that they'd never seen before, talk to the farmer about it, so they can see, one, they can taste different things and see why something's nutritious, what it tastes like, and then also how to turn it into something to eat. Once they come into the Foundation for Culinary Arts family, they're always a part of the family. So we let them dip their toes in, we give them some skills, but at the end of the day, they're gonna still leave here with portable life skills, which it never hurts to know how to cook, how to feed your family, how to nourish yourself. We feel that this is a skill set that they'll just take on and will help them throughout their life.
In 10 years, I do plan on opening my own restaurant, and I also do plan on mentoring students, just like my mentors have been mentoring me. Of course, I'm trying to help as much as I can, giving back to my community, giving back as much as I can.
Well, I want to be your first customer. Is that a deal?
Deal.
Our next guest is an actress and Ernest Hemingway's granddaughter. She is taking the lead with her own life and being vulnerable with the details. Let's take a look.
Another reason why I did this film is because of the son's addiction problem, and I think that so many of us in the world deal with these kinds of issues. And it's like, how do you deal with it?
Tackling the topic of addiction and celebrating recovery. Mariel Hemingway is doing this with her recent role and in real life.
I grew up in Idaho, so growing up in a small town made it so that nobody cares who you are. Nobody cares, and you don't realize when you grow up in a tiny town that it is sort of, I knew my grandfather was famous, but I didn't really understand that probably until I was 16 years old. So my childhood is probably the reason why I am who I am today. The part that was challenging was that my parents drank too much, and there was, like so many of us, we grow up in families, we love them, but they're dealing with their own pain and they're probably self-medicating that, which I didn't understand as a kid, but you deal with it. And I loved them, but I wasn't always, I didn't always feel safe, in the sense I didn't feel like anybody cared about me. And it wasn't, I knew my parents loved me, but it was because they were dealing with so much of their own stuff that there was a sense of isolation. But at the end of the day, I probably wouldn't be who I am.
She's open with her own battles and hopes her tough moments will encourage others to push through.
First of all, you have to talk about it. My whole thing is, I wrote Out Came the Sun, which is a book about my family and the mental health struggles of my family and myself. And the reason why I did that is I want to say to everybody, I want to give them all permission. Look, tell your story. Find somebody, a safe place, write in a journal, find a person, a therapist, a coach, whoever it is. Tell your story first, because once you tell your story, then your story gets to become a story. Because when you hold your story inside, that trauma becomes something oftentimes physical. And it's not the sole solution, but it's the beginning of finding that path towards recovery.
Today we had so much to celebrate. Our season 6 kickoff in our new Cine City studio. And we're a show that loves to move the dial forward with tough topics. But we want to remind you, some of those really delicate details can still be celebrated because they're pushing you forward. Remember, your story matters.
The Whitney Reynolds Show is made possible by Together at Peace, a foundation supporting hopeful bereavement care for the world by inspiring people to find ways to live with, honor, and share the unique love they carry, spreading the light that still shines bright. Together at Peace. Children's Learning Place, dedicated to empowering young students with the confidence to overcome present and future challenges to promote a brighter future for all. Kevin O'Connor Law Firm. When it comes to your injuries, we take it personally. JoePerillo.com, where you can browse their selection of pre-owned luxury vehicles. Based in Chicago, shipping all over the country. Simple Modern, drinkware with unique styles for adults and kids. Take us with you. The Adventures of Harry Moon book series for kids, focusing on becoming your best self with themes of friendship, anti-bullying, and responsibility. At harrymoon.org. Kevin Kelly, Fume Claire, Midwest Moving and Storage, Mike Dyer, Brendan Stadunsky, and by these funders.
Coming up on the Whitney Reynolds Show's current season. Are you still creating music?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the core, again, it all feeds back into the music. How can I improve this? But then, how can I challenge myself to think outside the musical box? And what does that look like? What does it look like for a rapper to now design a space?
My identity was rooted in being a wife and mother. When that broke apart, it just felt like I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
Well, and at this point, you said Real Housewives was not even a thing for you to even think about.
I mean, Whitney, Real Housewives wasn't even a thing after I had filmed the sizzle reel. I thought, I still can't do it. I can pretend that I'm gonna be a housewife, but if they really cast me, I'm gonna have to walk away.
I think we all, when we're young, at a very early age, we know what we wanna do, but it kind of gets beaten out of us, or we talk ourselves out of it, because it just doesn't seem like a reality. But why not you for that thing? So just take little steps. You don't have to jump from the ground floor to the top floor in, one fell swoop. No, you have to take the steps and take just a few steps every day.
It was then that the reality really sunk in for me that the family was gone, we were fractured,
The relationship with my father had started to crumble at that point, and I was still trying to navigate what kind of relationship I could still have with him. We really uncovered that my father had a double life. Complete shock, because it shattered the image you had of who your father was and the relationship you thought you had with this man, this individual who had been a really big part of our lives.
And I was like, I'm sick of the movies I've been making. I need something different. And so I called him up. It lifted me out of that hole. Like it's, I think when people think when they hear about this movie, oh, it's going to be a sad movie about a guy with Parkinson's. It's absolutely not that movie. It's an uplifting story about this guy. He drops out of high school, moves to LA. He's like really short. No one thinks he's going to do anything. He becomes the biggest movie star in America.
This whole idea that we may not be, all of our information may not be safe. And you know how we kind of go into it thinking that we're protected and we're not. And so this, I thought, was a really fun way to kind of scare people into knowing that their health information, that they might actually unwillingly be just giving it out to the internet.
What you want to do is like connect with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not a faith show. We think of this as a historical fiction show, like other shows, other genre shows.
Right.
It just so happens that one of the central characters in our show is the father of Christianity.
For more information on today's program, visit WhitneyReynolds.com or get social with us. Facebook, Whitney Reynolds Show, Twitter, Whitney Reynolds, or on TikTok and Instagram, Whitney_Reynolds.
I'm